Hello again, this is Kevin Johnson of Leverage Consulting, and this is the next episode of your Organizational Excellence Podcast. Today, I've got a very good topic for you, even a little bit of a deep topic, and it is projection. And no, I am not talking about that thing you use for a PowerPoint presentation or that thing they use in the movie theater. I am talking about projection in the sense of what people do to one another. To get to the point, to get to an actual definition, there's actually a definition I pulled for this podcast, and it gets even more specific, talking about complementary projection. And that occurs when individuals assume others feel the same way they do. I tend to see this type of projection in the practices and businesses that I work with when people assume that others feel exactly the same way that they do, or maybe even that people feel a certain way because of the interactions that that individual had with others in the past. I'll give you some examples, and I think one of the first and foremost examples that tends to come into play is when we get around finances. And interestingly, I had a team meeting with a group. This was actually a couple years ago, and I asked all the ladies in the group to take their handbags and put them up on the table. And we got some chuckles out of the group, got some laughs, but when we had all of them up on the tabletops, I asked each one of them to give us the name brand and give us the retail price of what was paid for each handbag. And of course, it got really interesting from there because we had individuals that had handbags that they may have paid $30 for, and of course they were bragging about the fact that they had used all their Kohl's cash and got it down to $30. You had someone else who was bragging about the fact that someone had given them a $350 Brighton bag. We had somebody else that was really quite hesitant about even talking about their handbag, but when it came down to it, they had spent $1,500, I think, on a Louis Vuitton bag. And then we had someone else, the very last person to go was someone that was looking at everyone else in dismay, and she took her bag and set it up on the table, and it was a grocery bag. And she looked at everyone else and said, I don't know why all of you spend the money that you do on handbags, because even the lady that had the $30 handbag, she had a lot of them. So the one with the grocery bag said, I get new bags every week. I don't spend a dime on these things, and it does exactly the same thing. Maybe not as stylish, but it gets everything from point A to point B. And one of the things that I picked up on this entire exercise was the fact that every person in this group, and this was a group of people that all worked alongside each other every day, and you would think there'd be some similarities amongst them. And interestingly enough, they started looking at the value that each one of them had for those handbags. Some of them, it had to do with the name brand. Some of them, it had to do with how it was built. Some of them, I do believe that the more they spent, they probably felt they were getting a much better handbag. And then you had one that thought you should spend nothing on handbags, and her philosophy was that she took whatever money that would have been spent on a handbag and she spent it on her kids. And who can argue with that? Imagine that in your business, we're dealing with each one of those people. They all value things a little bit differently. And then if you take yourself or someone in your business, and we deal with 6, 8, 10 people in a day that may have different values on things. So it may be whether they like a certain size or style of house, where that house is located. It might be the value that they put on dentistry or dental implant, whitening, periodontal disease, or anything of the sort. So we sometimes project our own personal feelings on other individuals. And could you imagine us saying, well, this person can't afford it because they work in a dental practice, therefore they'll never buy a Louis Vuitton bag. And here we go, we have someone with a Louis Vuitton bag. I believe on a regular basis, we're probably turning people away, maybe even offending certain people because we've never given them the same opportunity that we've given others. We don't treat everyone exactly the same. I have literally seen firsthand people who live in a single wide trailer, have a fixed income, and have one car for the household between the husband and wife, and they chose to move forward with a $40,000 treatment plan to fix the wife's teeth. And if I would have explained to you exactly the financial situation for this couple, you'd probably say to yourself, they're not ever going to do something like that. But yet this practice gave this couple the choice, and they decided to fix the wife's teeth. They found a way to do it. Think about how we project onto others, whether it's financial projection, meaning I'm looking at things saying, I don't value this, but maybe we're not giving this person the opportunity to decide for themselves. Sometimes it's also switching gears on you. Sometimes it's also about projecting our beliefs. And it may be whether something's going to work or not work, whether an individual is going to be accepting of some new changes, whether we feel like someone is going to actually succeed in a position or not. So sometimes we'll take those projections and verbalize them or communicate them. And when I say verbalize, I'm distinguishing by communicating, because maybe it's nonverbal communication that we're giving others based on our beliefs and not allowing this person enough rope to actually succeed. So the thing that I would ask you is, going back to my beginning, my little joke about the projector, is there might be times we need to put a cap on our projection and shut it off and allow others to make their own decisions or allow them to succeed. So think about that in your day-to-day operations and your practice. Think about that when you're interacting with your team, your customers. Think about putting the cap on the projector. So that, my friends, is your Organizational Excellence Podcast. I'll have another one teed up for you again in another couple days.